What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of Investing 101. Today, I'm going to go over a HUD or a closing statement from a couple different properties, and I'm going to break them down. This is something that usually you won't see until closing day, and you're like, how the hell do I know if this is right? I know it was something that was very confusing for me. I had no idea about origination fees or what was right, prepaids, and all this stuff. So today, I'm actually going to show you some of my exact HUDs from a couple different options. One is going to be a primary residence loan. So it's a conventional loan, so you're going to have prepaid things up front, your taxes, your insurance, all that's going to get escrowed. And you're also going to see those lenders' fees and stuff like that. I'm also going to show you a hard money loan back when I used to use hard money. So you can see that there are fees and stuff like that off the hard money side of it. And then I'm also going to show you a cash sale, and you're going to see why you can save so much money if you can start purchasing properties with cash, because you won't have the closing costs that you see with lender fees and stuff like that. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to show you, again, these are the actual closing statements from these three properties. So let's get into it. Okay, so this first one I am going to go over is going to be the primary residence that I first purchased, that I house hacked. So obviously this up here is going to be the sales price of the home. So that'll always be the total number that's considered. So here's your earnest money. And this one was a little bit different because these were already calculated in there. This $13,000 check, typically you won't see that on your actual adjustment up front because typically that's not given that early. But we had a little issue with closing. He needed more time to basically move out. So we did basically a lease back to him to be able to give him the time to move out. So I had already put that 13, that was basically the other closing costs and stuff like that. So seller paid closing costs. This was an agreement that I got him to be able to agree to, is that, and another thing that people say, but they don't know, is that I actually represented myself in this transaction. So this is part of this is the buying agent commission. And I was able to collect that. You can't take it as cash because I wasn't licensed at the time, but I basically negotiated that percentage that this is the realtor side, and the selling side, I took that 7,000, and the other 1,400 was we negotiated that as well. It was additional closing costs. So here's your prorations, and this is on her side. So the reason why this is because you see how this is dated from, they have to pay their portion of taxes for the year. So the tax bill for the year, this is the full year. So they had to pay the proration from this time that they still own the property. And since I'm paying the taxes in October, I have to pay the full 9,500. So the county doesn't care that they're not going to collect this portion from him and then the rest from me. So technically it gets credited to me at closing. And then in October, I'll have to pay this full amount, which will come out of escrow. So this is the new loan amount from the lender I used. And then this is going to be all the lender's fees. This is just the lender's fees. So the prepaid interest for this month, obviously the difference between 280 and 266 is my down payment that I had to come up with out of pocket. So that's why the loan is only 266, even though the sales price is 280. Processing fee, underwriting fee, admin fee. Here's the appraisal fee, but as you can see, I already paid for this up front, so that's why you don't see a charge on here. And then lender doc prep. Again, every lender is going to be different of how they word it, but they almost all always have processing or underwriting fees and stuff like that in there. So on the second page, so buyer credit, aggregate adjustment to buyer fund. Basically, I negotiated them to give me a credit for, again, closing cost. Homeowners insurance, again, this is part of your prepaid. So they need to escrow. They wanted 3 months of insurance. So took the 12 months divided by the insurance, and it was $209 a month. So they wanted 3 months. So I was responsible to pay for $600 at closing. Here is, again, the city taxes. They wanted 8 months prorated. So I had to put up $6,000 at closing to prepaids for that. You're going to see this, the payoff side. So this is the mortgage that they owed. That's the titles company's job, is they'll get a payoff from, if there is a lender, they'll get a payoff, and that's going to come off of his. It's not really important to you, obviously, because it doesn't matter. It's whatever his payoff is. And then these are going to be your title and escrow fees. So this is basically the fee for them closing the file. And then the rest of these are just going to be like recording fees and stuff like that, other than your title policy. So your title policy, and again, this is a negotiating tactic. It was $1,700. I put it in the contract that the seller was going to pay for that. So that was one of the things I negotiated in the contract, is that the seller pays for that. So that comes out of his. I didn't have to pay that. And again, these are all just recording fees, like with the county and stuff like that. And these are the distributions that were paid, because I had to pay for a survey, flood insurance, homeowners insurance. And essentially, this nets the money that I had to pay up, minus all the mortgages and everything. And then this is the net to the seller. So what do you take away? What he had to pay on his closing cost, and then also his payoff. That's what he's walking away with. Okay, so this is going to be a conventional loan with escrows and all that stuff. This is what you could expect. Again, it's going to look a little different. Some lenders might want 12 months of insurance. Some lenders might want 6 months. Everything's going to be different. So, but this gives you a gist of what a conventional loan will typically break down as. So let us go into what a non-conventional loan is going to look like. This is going to be a HUD from a hard money property I closed. So obviously the sales price was $105,000. Here's my earnest money receipt. Again, you're going to get the taxes for the prorated dates. Again, this is another property that I negotiated to keep the commission. My girlfriend at the time was licensed, so her broker just said, yeah, I don't care. So basically they gave me the commission off of that one, because this one was on the MLS as well. Attorney fee, that was negotiated where they cover that. So here's going to be your new loan amount. This is going to be the lender, your prepaid interest, origination fee. You see that that's 2%, which is actually at the time was a pretty decent for a hard money lender. I've seen 3, 4, 5. This number will change with how much, usually your experience and your credit. So if you have no experience and you have no properties and you have not the best credit, you're going to see 3, 4, 5 points for these type of loans. And then obviously you have your processing fees, credit report, flood cert, doc fees, attorney fees, all these other fees. That's going to be all from the lender, and you're going to have to pay all those, obviously. And you can see I only put 10% down. It's a $94,000 loan. Price was only $105 to start. So, and again, these are going to be all your title fees. This one I had to pay for the title policy, as you can see, it's on there, and the rest of them are the recording fees. You're both going to usually pay an escrow fee unless you negotiated something off market and you're like, hey, I'll cover all the closing costs. When you hear somebody say, I'll cover the closing costs, this is what that means, that they're going to pay their side of the escrow fees. So you would pay double escrow fees essentially, and anything else that they would pay. So they wouldn't pay anything on this side for that. That one's real simple. Yeah. Okay. So that's going to be the hard money loan. And then you're going to see how easy it is for a cash sale. This is a cash purchase. That's the sales price. There was a $5,000 assignment fee from a wholesaler. And then this is going to be your total charges, which will go down to the bottom and show that. So I had a $5,000 deposit that came off of it. As you can see, there's nothing on their side, obviously. And then, so here is going to be that. See how there's no lender fees, nothing, no prepaids, no home insurance, nothing. So all you're going to do is come down, you get the title policy, which obviously I paid for because it was off market. And then All he had was the closing fees, and that's it. So all the closing fees are only $1,800. That was less than just my origination for my hard money loan. So again, this is where once you start getting to the point where you can start paying cash for properties, I'm saving myself probably 3%, 4%. Once you factor in all the underwriting and doc fees and stuff like that off of every single purchase, I'm saving with hard money. On the also not paying 10 or 11, 12% interest or whatever it is. So once you get to the point where you can start doing that initial purchase in cash and using cash, or if you have a family member or a friend or something like that that is willing to loan you the money, there's a big savings to that. Same thing like with that. That's the reason why like a HELOC is a great option, because you can just keep rinse and repeat. You buy one, you're only paying one closing cost for your HELOC, and then now that money's sitting there. When you take it out, you go buy the property, you're paying interest on that for those 3-4 months of rehabbing it. As soon as you go to refinance it, you pay it off and you do it again, but you're only paying one set of closing costs. So that's how you really can leverage a HELOC instead of having to use hard money, which, as you can see, even for somebody that's experienced, how expensive that was for that. So, well, that's a quick little breakdown of a HUD, guys. Again, this is something that I remember when I walked to the closing table the first day, it's like, how do you possibly know if any of this is right or correct? You know, you don't. How are you going to see if somebody's slipping in an extra fee? Until you can do it a couple times or you see a couple of these, you know, you're not really going to know. And a lot of it isn't you negotiating. And all it is a checkbox on the contract, and that's this policy right here is what, $666. All you got to put it on the check is that they're paying for the title policy, and that you just saved yourself $666. So, well, that's another episode of Investing 101. If you got any other questions or comments, please shoot me a DM. Please like and subscribe to the page. Really appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.